Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be answering the question, how did Thailand survive colonialism? Now, Thailand is interesting because it's actually only one of the countries in the world that actually survived Western imperialism. So today, I'm going to explain why. Now, there's going to be at least two parts of this, so yeah, stay tuned for the next one. For this, we have to go back to the Ayutthaya Kingdom. Now, the Ayutthaya Kingdom was a Siamese kingdom that existed in Southeast Asia from 1350 to 1767, centered around the city of Ayutthaya in Siam, or considered present-day Thailand. The Ayutthaya Kingdom is considered to be the precursor of modern Thailand, and its developments are an important part of the history of Thailand. Now, in 1687 to 1688, there was a brief state of war between the English East India Company and the Kingdom of Siam. Siam officially declared war against the company in August 1687, but no peace was ever signed to the end of the war. But the Siamese Revolution of 1688 rendered the issue moot. Now, the location of this war is at Mergul in Burma and the Coromandel coast. And the result, as I explained, Siam closed to company borders and no peace treaty was ever signed. Here are the belligerents, the Ayutthaya Kingdom of Siam and English defectors against the East India Company. Now, the next war with European powers doesn't stop there. Actually, it basically continued 1 year after, and it's the Siege of Bangkok. Now, the Siege of Bangkok was a key event of the Siamese Revolution of 1688, in which the Kingdom of Siam ousted the French from Siam. Following a coup d'etat, in which the pro-Western King Narai was replaced by Petiracha, Siamese troops besieged the French fortress in Bangkok for 4 months. The Siamese troops were able to muster about 40,000 troops, equipped with cannon against the entrenched 200 French troops, but the military confrontation proved inconclusive. Tensions between the two belligerents progressively subsided, and finally a negotiated settlement was reached, allowing the French to leave the country. Now we're going to move on to the 19th century, when Siam transitioned from the Ayutthaya Kingdom to the Ratanakosin Kingdom. Now, when King Mongkut, or King Rama IV, ascended the Siamese throne, he was severely threatened by the neighboring states. The colonial powers of Britain and France had already advanced into territories which originally belonged to the Siamese sphere of influence. Mongkut and his successor, Chulalongkorn, Rama V, recognized this situation and tried to strengthen the defense forces of Siam by modernization to absorb Western scientific and technical advancements, thus avoiding colonization. The first two monarchs who ruled in this epoch were the first with Western formation. King Mongkut had lived 26 years as a wandering monk and later as an abbot of Wat Bawani Vihan. He was not only skilled in the traditional culture and Buddhist sciences of Siam, but he also dealt extensively with modern Western science, drawing on the knowledge of European missionaries and correspondence with Western leaders. And the Pope, he was the first Siamese monarch to speak English. As early as 1855, John Bowring, the British governor in Hong Kong, appeared on a warship at the mouth of the Chao Phraya River. Under the influence of Britain's achievements in neighboring Burma, King Mongkut signed the so-called Bowring Treaty, which abolished the royal foreign trade monopoly, abolished import duties, and granted Britain a most favorable clause. The Bowring Treaty meant the integration of Siam into the world economy, but at the same time, the royal house lost its most important sources of income. Similar treaties were considered with all Western powers in the following years, such as in 1862 with the Prussia with Prussia and in 1869 with Austria-Hungary. From the Prussian emissary Count Friedrich Albrecht zu Eulenburg comes a much respected travel report about Siam. The survival diplomacy which Siam had cultivated abroad for a long time reached its climax in this epoch. The integration into the world economy meant to Siam that it became a sales market for Western industrial goods and an investment for Western capital. The export of agricultural and mineral raw materials began, including the three products rice, pewter, and teakwood, which were to produce 90% of the export turnover. King Mongkut actively promoted the expansion of agricultural land by tax incentives, while the construction of traffic routes, canals, roads, and later also railways, and the influx of Chinese immigrants allowed the agricultural development of new regions. Mongkut's son, Chulalongkorn, or King Rama V, ascended to the throne in 1868. He was the first Siamese king to have a full Western education, having been taught by a British governess, Anna Lenowens, whose place in Siamese history has been fictionalized as the King and I. At first, King Rama V's reign was dominated by the conservative regent, Somdet Jaupayasi Suriwong, but when the king came of his age in 1873, he soon took control. He created a privy council and a council of state, a formal court system and budget office. He announced that slavery would be gradually abolished and debt bondage restricted. However, the story doesn't end here. I'm still going to talk about how Western colonialism affected Siam. Now, part 2 will explain about all of these. And yeah, stay tuned for the next video.